Thank you for joining us today at beautifullyimperfect.net. I'm here with my brother, Dan Burns, supervisor of the DBT program and psychologist at an agency in Flint, Michigan. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Kate, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.
So I'm hoping you can share a little bit about what you do in the mental health capacity and really focusing on how COVID has played a role in how you're helping patients and how you're, the way you're able to interact with people has changed and how and what kinds of stresses they're dealing with. So let's just start with a little bit of an overview of what you do and what the DBT program actually means.
Sure. So yeah, I supervise a DBT program, stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy, and it's an evidence-based practice, which essentially just means that there's lots of research to show this is an effective practice for those that it helps, effective treatment rather. And it's really known as like the gold standard treatment for something called borderline personality disorder, which is really a disorder where if it was called something else, it would be called dysfunction of emotion regulation. So we really help a lot of clients that struggle to regulate emotion and have lots of impulsive behaviors. So most of our clients have had suicide attempts or have current or chronic suicidal thoughts and self-harm behaviors, other impulsive behaviors, substance use. And so it helps a lot of different disorders, but particularly borderline personality disorder. And so somebody in our program, when they sign up for our program, it's a voluntary program, they get access to individual therapy with one of our therapists for a year. And they also get what we call skills training through a group. Although our groups have been, at the start of this pandemic, we were been given individual skills instead of the group. And that's for various reasons, which I'll go into in a little bit. But so that's one of the ways that this has all been affected. And so we've been doing telehealth for, ever since, I guess mid-March when this all happened.
Sure.
So anyway, so our clients would get an hour of individual therapy and a 2-hour skills group where they're learning skills to manage their behaviors. And we're really replacing problematic behaviors with more effective skill. And so they learn skill in areas like mindfulness and emotion regulation and tolerating distress. And then interpersonal effectiveness is what we call it. It's essentially relationship skills.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also, they have access to 24-hour phone coaching with us. So they might, we rotate an on-call phone and they can call their individual therapist or anyone on the team. And this would include if, they might have the knife in their hand and have the urge to self-harm, and they'll call then. But it doesn't have to be in crisis. They might call if they want to rehearse talking to their spouse or a loved one and what they might say. So they can use phone coaching as well.
What age group are we talking about? Predominantly adults or younger, teens as well?
Yeah, so DBT is evidence-based for adults. That's how it started. So it's a treatment that's been developed since the 1990s. Somebody by the name of Marsha Linehan developed it.
Okay.
And it originally started for suicidal women and has come to be more effective for a larger group of people. But we do have an adolescent group as well. So we'll accept 12 to 17-year-olds. 13 to 17, occasionally we have a 12-year-old, and occasionally an 18-year-old that may have a better fit in the adolescent group. So we see adolescents. I have one adolescent group running right now and 3 adult groups.
Okay.
So, and the adults will range in ages. Typically, borderline personality disorder is a disorder that is generally started in teens and early 20s. But we have individuals in their 60s, we've had some in their 70s even that have come in. So
Are you diagnosing this in people, or are these people already diagnosed and coming to you for help?
yeah, so we're a referral program. So these are individuals who, and they don't have to have necessarily have that diagnosis. They just have to meet the criteria that this is a treatment that's going to be helpful for them.
Okay.
So they get a referral from one of their primary programs, which will have something like case management, med services, and so they'll get a diagnosis there typically. So yeah, our job isn't really to diagnose them, just to evaluate if we think they'll be a good candidate for our program.
Okay. Have you noticed a lot of increase in need during COVID?
Yeah, so initially when it all first went down, so like in mid-March or whatever, we didn't have a lot of referrals. We've since been getting a lot of referrals just in the last few weeks. So I think, and I guess I really don't know. I guess I have a hypothesis that it was maybe still definitely affecting people during that time, but not really sure how to access the services, or if the services were happening with, most of the world shut down, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think individuals have a lot more stress and challenges because of it all. So
Sure,
there's a
absolutely.
greater need for it now. Yeah.
Is there one thing that stands out that you find most beneficial for your patients? I guess it may change depending on if you're dealing with a borderline personality individual or a suicide, or maybe that's one and the same. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I think what has drawn me to DBT is just the model, and that I know that it is effective and that it works. So,
Mm-hmm.
so these are clients that have really high risk behaviors, or considered high risk behaviors, and I think there's a stigma for those with borderline personality disorder that they've encountered. But I really enjoy working with these clients, and to be able to see in a year's time. It's not always just a year. Sometimes they'll stay for a little longer for different reasons. But in a year and a half time, to see dramatic changes in
Mm-hmm.
individuals. And it's not a suicide prevention program. We call it a Build a Life Worth Living program. It's one of our
Okay.
taglines. So to really see just incredible change with
Mm-hmm.
these clients is, I think, it's there's not many, I don't know, that can say that every day that they can help change lives, like mean
Sure.
it literally, and save lives. And I believe that. My staff and I really say
Right.
that. So it's really rewarding. It's a lot of work, and it can be really stressful
Sure.
to be, working with the client in the middle of their crisis and they're suicidal, or have urges for self-harm or something. But it's really rewarding.
What are some of the high risk behaviors that someone might be dealing with?
Yeah. So typical features of someone with borderline personality disorder, they'll have it's really characterized by frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, is what we call it. But a lot of times it's impulsive behaviors as their solutions to try to manage these big emotions that they're dealing with,
I see.
or to serve different functions. But a lot of times the high risk behaviors really are life-threatening behaviors. So they'll have suicide attempts, or feel suicidal, and then self-harm comes in different forms.
Sure.
We also get clients that have lots of substance use, problem eating behaviors or eating disorders. Aggression is more rare. I mean, we'll find that really our clients, or those just in general with mental health, are way more likely to be the victim of violence than to be violent themselves.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it can really be any impulsive behavior. So,
Okay.
but lots of hospitalization because of the high risk behaviors. So these folks will have a high hospital recidivism, is what we say. It means that they'll be in and out of the hospital because of high risk behavior, self-harm, and suicide.
Mm-hmm. So what led you to get involved with this program?
So that's an interesting story. So when I first started off, so I graduated from grad schools with my master's in psychology in 2007. And my background was really psychoanalytic, which is more along this Freudian way, which is the sort of other end of the spectrum from behavioral approach, right?
Okay.
And but I had a client that looking back, I know she would have a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, but she was engaged in lots of high-risk behavior, and she had a suicide attempt as I was her therapist. And she had jumped off an overpass and attempted to kill herself and ended up shattering both her legs.
Okay.
And I just remember thinking that I don't really know what I'm doing with this. And that's not a fun place to be as a therapist or as anybody, I guess.
Sure.
But I'm glad that I was able to be as vulnerable with myself to admit that, because I was able to seek out, and quickly found that this is a really effective treatment for that. And the agency I was working with at the time was interested in evidence-based practices, as many agencies are now, and kind of made a push for this. And they trained me, and I've loved it ever since. And so when I had the opportunity to go to another agency and supervise the DBT program, I was ecstatic to do so. So I just love this field, this treatment that I supervise. So
That's amazing. That's great. And it sounds like it's very impactful. So you're changing lives and impacting people for the better, which is pretty huge.
yeah, we like to think so.
Well, so how do you define success in your practice? What's a successful day for you?
That's interesting too. So my team and I have a team meeting that's part of DBT as well. We have this thing we call a team consultation meeting. That's part of the model of DBT.
Okay.
And one of the things that we'll put on our board or our agenda are, we call it team wows and client wows, because you might have a week where your clients are really struggling with lots of behaviors, and progress may be hard to find or hard to see. And so we're really kind of tasked with just remembering to observe where the progress is, even though it might look like baby steps. Or so I think I define success as really just any sort of impact that you have on another person, and without any judgment to how big it may be, where you make that person or that place any better.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. And I guess getting together as a group, you can help each other to stay positive and encouraged, because I'm sure you're dealing with a lot of deep, dark things that can easily get to you as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's really important to, like, when your colleagues having, or my staff's having a tough week, and for me with them to remember to, like, find these work wins that help kind of build us up and remotivate it, because burnout's just a real thing. And
Sure.
and so that's one of the things that we do to support each other, just to, like, monitor each other's burnout, and just, like, to find the things that remind us about why we do the work that we do. So.
And it must be amazing at the end of that year, like you said earlier, to see that progress that the person that you've been working with, which maybe at the time seemed like baby steps, becomes bigger steps.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's some of the best part of it is my clients, or our clients, when they graduate. So they'll graduate, and we'll have, like, this formal graduation. I guess it's not that formal, but they'll have this graduation for them in their skills group, and just some of the things they say and some of the things we say gets really emotional, and but it's really awesome. Like, that will fill you right back up, and
Oh, I bet.
all worthwhile,
That's amazing. And how many people are in each group usually?
So we try to keep the groups to less than 10. So our current program, we don't, I guess we have a moderately sized program, I guess. But we'll have probably 3 groups running with about 8 or 9 people in each group. And then we have a teen group. Our teen group, they're there's a support person, a family member, parent, guardian. And so they'll have 4 or 5 teens and their support person with them.
Gotcha.
So.
And how many of you are there in each group setting?
Yeah, so there's always 2. So there's
Okay.
a lead and a co-lead, a co-facilitator. And that's part of the model as well for various reasons to
Sure. That
support
makes
the
sense.
lead, and the co-lead can sort of jump in at a moment's notice if needed, or truly kind of monitor if somebody in the group has a need and needs to step out or to help manage whatever else might come up during groups.
Yeah,
Things come up.
I bet they do come up. Well, that's great, Dan. And I guess you had mentioned that you also run a monthly mindfulness group. So can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so mindfulness is a big part of DBT, and
Okay.
so mindfulness. I'll steal the definition from a guy named John Kabat-Zinn, who's kind of a big mindfulness guru. It's really it was an Eastern philosophy kind of he brought back to the West, but he would define it as it's awareness, the practice of awareness to the present moment, on purpose and without judgment. So we can practice mindfulness of really anything, but if you think about it, we spend a lot of time not in the present moment, but we think a lot about the future. And if you're like me, I'm in my to-do list a lot and not really in the present, or in the past about why did I say that thing that I said or whatever happened yesterday. So it's just this practice of like being in the moment. And so we teach it to all of our clients. That's one of the sections of skills that they'll learn. And we call it core mindfulness because it's really at the core of all that we do. So if like we're teaching them how to like tolerate a stressful moment that they can't manage, and they're doing this distract skill or the soothing skill. If they're listening to music or doing the thing, but they're not doing it mindfully, it's really not working. So mindfulness is really at the core of all that we do. But so all of our clients will learn about it, and then we practice it as well. So every morning in our team meeting, we do a mindfulness exercise. But my agency was aware of that, and they came to me at one point hearing about mindfulness, and it's become more popular recently. And asked if it could be a benefit to the agency and this all those for their own self-care and trying to help their own staff. And so I said, yeah, I think so. And so we started this thing where I call it monthly mindfulness. It's now become more frequent than that. It's not just me doing it, but that's how it started. And so every month I would just we'd teach them a little bit about mindfulness, and then we practice a mindfulness exercise together, and just kind of help others build this practice as well.
Sure. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Well, since you are obviously remote and not in the office with your clients or in groups with them, are you basically doing these group meetings through Zoom or some kind of platform like that?
Yes, yeah, and I meant to get back to that with the original question, but yeah, we've been doing telehealth ever since this happened, and just as of upcoming here in July, are we going to have some ability to continue in office work, and so there's going to be some combination of that. But yeah, we've been doing telehealth. And so providing individual therapy through Zoom or confidentially through some other means, but mostly Zoom. And then we've been providing individual skills to our clients, but we're going to get that into Zoom groups, into in-office groups back again. But DBT is, luckily, the state has allowed us to open up telehealth codes, because DBT has not previously been something that has had ability to do it via telehealth. And so I think, we've seen clients who really think that this could be something that can continue to help them, but there's also things I think you miss out on. There's just some things that I think that it's hard to really assess or to get the feel of when you're not with the person right in front of you.
Sure, that makes
Um,
sense.
so I think there's pros and cons to it. But I'd be interested to see if they continue to allow the billing codes to be billed that way through
Hmm.
telehealth. So yeah, so we've been doing a lot of that. It's interesting. I have clients that can kind of go both ways. Of course, I have some that miss the face to face and being in contact, and others that might have transportation issues. Some that struggle to manage just social environments in
Hmm.
general,
Hmm.
and they find that it's really benefited them. Um, and others that I've even had a client who find it even more comfortable to know that other people are more hyper vigilant in social settings, and he told me that I'm used to this. This is my
Hmm.
normal operating um, way of being. So I think it depends on the individual
Sure.
what works for them or not. But it's been, I think initially there was this big challenge to kind of move everything that we were doing to telehealth. But I'm just proud of my clients and I'm proud of my staff because we've been able to adapt pretty well and kind of hit our stride with it now.
That's amazing. I would think some people would feel more comfortable in their own home. It's not as much of a stretch, I would say, to have to go out and be part of a group or go meet with someone one-on-one. So it could definitely be beneficial to some people. I could see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
glad.
we get lots of feedback and some that are hoping that this stays and like I said, some that miss out. And I think we find our own ways of, if some of our clients are hoping that I can manage my anxiety better in social settings because I want to get out more,
Sure.
we can still find ways of doing some exposure work with them that way.
That's great. Well, if you had one thing to say to someone who thought that they had, a borderline personality disorder or were showing, signs of impulsive behavior, what would that be?
Definitely that there's help out there and to say something.
Hmm.
That we all need help with different things at different times, and that there's help out there, um, and that mental health is not something to be ashamed of. It's something that we all have different levels of health in
Hmm.
our mental health, and to seek whatever you need. So particularly for those with borderline personality disorder, do your own research and see what you think works. Um, DBT maybe isn't for everybody, but there's a lot of research that I know that, and I've seen it, that this
Hmm.
can help.
That's great. Well, thank you, Dan, for taking time to talk to me today, and thank you for your practice and your time that you give to individuals to help them better themselves. It's really amazing, and I've enjoyed learning about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Kate. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.